half of facing your fear is facing that you've got some fears.
How do I deal with my insecurities? How do I deal with rejection as an artist?
It's being scared. It's being scared to be sitting right here, right now. It's being, it's being scared you're going to be too big, that you're going to say something stupid.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Fearful Giants, the podcast that's getting loud about something most leaders never talk about out loud, their fear. I'm Clay Stelzer, executive coach and founder of 1560, the coaching company. And every week I sit down with a founder, a CEO, or an executive leader to talk about the stuff they're not generally posting about on LinkedIn. And today I've got Sarah Laird, and I'm just so excited about this. Sarah is a creative business leader. She's a founder and CEO of Laird and Good Company, which is an artist management agency and full service production company based in New York City with a presence in London. And Sarah has led the company for over 3 decades, building it into a globally respected creative force representing top photographers, directors, stylists, and other artists across editorial, advertising, and commercial media. Sarah and her team have worked with massive clients, including Apple, Diageo, Netflix, and Lancôme. And she's just hilarious and smart and inspiring. And I just love my chats with Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Clay. And thank you for that intro and all those words. To tell you the truth, I never hear those words and I never think about those words. And in all these years, I've never even really thought about those words. And my mother used to ask me a long time ago, I hear you have a nice little company in New York, and we're from Mississippi. And I don't know. It's interesting. So thank you. It was interesting to hear all that. I never think of myself as a CEO, but I guess I am.
Yeah, you are.
Definitely the founder, and, definitely started from sitting on my bed with a baby and a Rolodex and literally a Princess phone.
So, Sarah, there are a few things I want to talk with you about that I'm excited to chat about. First is representing artists. I think it's fascinating what you do, managing the relationships between your artists and your clients. I just have a lot of questions, so I want to talk about that. Then I want to talk about you as a leader. I want to talk about who Sarah is becoming next in this next chapter of her life and career. But before we get into all that, I want to talk about a conversation we had yesterday. We were on video like this, and you shared a little bit of reluctance about being on the show, which I so appreciated. And, and I think you even expressed a little bit of fear to tell me that. And my initial thought was one, thank you so much for sharing that. And two, well, what a fun thing for us to talk about on the show, because this whole show is about fear. And for me, it's fear isn't negotiable. We all have it, but what you do with it is what counts. And I love what you did with your fear yesterday by talking with me about it. So I would just love for you to share, what was the reluctance about, or what is the reluctance about?
Yeah. Well, that probably is a good place to start. Well, I've never done a podcast, and I think I've kept my life super comfortable with the people around me. My team, you just build them from one person to the next. You hire them because you feel something in sync with them. You learn to find your voice with them. You find trust with them. And it's kind of like the same thing with the artist. Also, I grew up in the South where, you're a little bit quieter. I was also female in the South, had a strong, busy family with a lot of words. And I don't know, maybe somewhere along the way, somebody said that sounds stupid or whatever. So, the fear was just like a real thing. It's just opening your mouth and talking about your feelings. And I've never spent a lot of time talking about who I am. I mean, even when you introed me earlier, I don't connect all the time with this leader, this founder, this CEO. Definitely not that. I just feel a lot of things. I feel super lucky that the business, that the world kind of set me sail on this path.
Yeah.
And I've always felt really lucky for that I tapped into a lot of my real natural attributes. And it's actually flipped forward. And I'm sure that has something to do with me in business, that I always want to find everybody's little sweet spot where they're really happy inside and they really get to express themselves. So I think that, I've kept everything very close and tidy and, have a tight-knit family and I have a tight-knit office group and artists. And so speaking in the big picture about a lot of things and feelings and ways I do things is new.
Yeah, of course. Well, by the way, this is a pretty weird show. Like you get some coach dude, me, that's inviting people to come on and talk about their fear. Like not the most
It's a good
obvious
one for
place for
me, actually. Yeah.
yeah, not the most obvious place for a lot of people to spend their free time talking about their fear publicly. So
But it
it
feels
makes sense.
real. That's the thing. It feels
Well,
real. And, we all do have them. And it does drive us so much, our fears. And I think that's what I've come
yeah,
to terms with. I'm just kind of, I want to observe them. And then like everything else, I kind of want them to pass through me. And if I need to learn
yeah,
from them, I learn from them. And if I don't, I don't. But, I would say I've operated under a lot of different kinds of fears and things, but there's
yeah,
also another part of me that's super expansive and doesn't even think, about like the
yeah,
words you just said. I'm just feeling.
yeah. Well, Sarah, all of that is why I wanted you on the show.
Okay.
Because as I mentioned before, like fear is part of the human experience. And, a lot of people are like, you got to be fearless in life and as a leader and all this bullshit. And I think it's bullshit. Fear is a natural part of who we are. And the real opportunity is what do we do with the fear? And yesterday, what you did with the fear is you outed yourself. You said, Clay, I'm a little nervous about being on the show. I don't know, this feels a little, I have some reluctance. And I just was so appreciative of it. Now, here's my thought about that. And this is really the why I'm doing the show. If more people were willing to out their fears with one another, I just wonder how much more effective our businesses can be, how much more connected we can feel with others in the world. Because I will tell you, as soon as you outed your fear to me, one, I trusted you even more than I already trusted you. I know that if you're willing to tell me that, then if you tell me yes to things, you're going to mean it. And if you tell me no to things, you're going to mean it. I just felt immediately more connected with you because you were willing to put down your
Yeah.
mask and say, hey, I've
Yeah.
got some reluctance here. So I just
Yeah.
so appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can say, interesting you say that because, I do think of any time, say, my husband and I are in a funny place. When we finally talk, we feel so much better, even though you dread that talk for so long, but then you
Right.
have it
Yeah.
and it just changes everything. So, I mean,
Yeah.
yes, facing our fears, I think that's probably what it's all about. And also, truth be said, life presented this opportunity. I'm coaching with you. You're talking to me about I'm in the therapy I'm talking about. I'm learning the reason I do some of the things that I do. And so much of it is based on fear, communicating with people, hurting people's feelings, confrontation, all these things. And, I think half of facing your fear is facing that you've got some fears because I think sometimes I don't even let that really come to surface. Yeah, no, telling you about it was because I also trust you. This came in the process of our coaching. I felt like I was ready for it, but that really is the way I tackle everything in life. The things that come in front of me, I'm ready for, even if they're hard, and like this, we're going to get off the phone and we're going to have had fun. We're going to talk because we like each other and we trust each other. But yes, and I just wanted to say one more thing to that point about if everybody came to each other with fear, I seem to have little sayings every year that kind of run my life a little bit. And mine last year was like, if we could clear up miscommunications quicker. I feel the same way about like you do with that, with confronting our fears or telling a person a fear. Because I think a lot of times in life we don't really know we have fears, but what we do know is if we're not communicating well. Do you know what I mean? Like one is fear is kind of underneath communication, right? It's the driving
Sure.
force.
Yeah.
So, I
And I
kinda had
think
this
if,
thing last year, man, if we would just think what happens when there's a miscommunication and somebody takes it wrong, and then they're acting off of that miscommunication. So, basically, this whole tree grows, off of miscommunication.
yeah,
So, I've
exactly.
been trying to figure out and again, that's what a lot of this coaching is about, getting to the point quicker so we just don't waste so much valuable time and misunderstandings and confront our
Yeah.
fears.
That's it. I love it. You talked about hurting people's feelings and some of these other things that induce fear. Well, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about this industry you're in. I'm still learning about it. It's a new industry for me. I was in advertising for a good chunk of years in my earlier career, but I've never done what you do. You represent artists, storytellers that are brilliant at what they do, and you connect them with brands and companies that need their story told or need a story told. And for
Yes.
me, that's a fascinating relationship because when I think of artists, when I think of brilliant artists that are like, that see the world, in a unique way and can tell a new type of story, I think of like young, spirited people. They're expressive, they're authentic, they need to be somewhat vulnerable to really bring forward these ideas that they have.
Mhm.
And they have to work in conjunction with brand managers and corporate entities that probably are very different in the world. And so you're having to sort of connect two very different minded people, I'm imagining.
Well, I mean, part of our job, I think, is to match the people, right? So if we're doing our job as agents well, then we are finding talent and they're finding us, each other, that we could have a voice for. Like, we like their work, they like what we're up to. And we would all never make that decision if we didn't think we could do something with them. And we kind of had an idea in the back of our mind who we could sell them to, or how they were going to position in the industry, or were they going to be a hot moment, or were they, you never quite know. It's a little bit of a vibe, a combination of a vibe and a combination of work. And, again, life just kind of happening for you, putting things in front of you. And yes, but clients also have these big departments in the back of their offices that are figuring out what their looks are. So that's changing all the time. So that's the most interesting thing is you might have an artist that's perfect for Apple or Nike today, but tomorrow they might change the way they're doing their whole campaign. So there's a lot that's always going on underground. So the best we can do, and I think where I'm half decent at the job, or at least I decided 10 years ago I was, is representing these people, like to the best of our ability, with love and kindness and all of our expertise. We're a gorgeous big team of big hearts, and they always say it starts from the top. That's sort of the fish stinks from the top, or the feelings start from the top, or whatever it is. But I know that there's a lot of love and care that goes into these representing these artists. And not everybody probably wants to feel that. Some artists probably want to come somewhere and we just want to work. We don't need all that other help, trying to figure out who we are or branding us, or that's a little bit of a roundabout, but
Okay. So, like, I imagine it does take some active management. I mean, you have these, I don't know, maybe I'm over romanticizing artists, but you have these expressive beings and you've got these
yeah,
corporate entities and you do what you can to match A and B together really well. But through this
yes.
process, I imagine fear spikes on both sides. I imagine there needs to be some sort of counseling therapy, like some real glue to help them stay in a relationship. And so I'm
Yes.
curious, like, what's that like for you to have to manage that?
Well, I think these artists probably, you have to remember we represent them commercially. All right. So we take their artwork, the work they're doing in their basement at home, or they're wandering around shooting beautiful pictures. And, they could have other galleries and things like that where they show their artwork. And then we take that and we kind of turn it into a little bit more of a like commercial flavor. Right. And
Got it.
also, we want it to stay creative and artsy too. And again, that's depending on what the world over here wants. Sometimes the world over here wants a Magnum photographer. Sometimes the world over here wants a really solid commercial photographer that they know can turn up and shoot the celebrity in 10 minutes. Sometimes they want somebody to really interpret what it is that a company is doing right now. They want them actually to be a little bit more of a storyteller these days than they used to. The most important thing is they wouldn't be here if they didn't want to do commercial work. So they're prepared to go in and merge with a client. And the thing is, used to you might have a account that came back to you again and again and again, as sometimes you do, and that is the holy grail. But the market these days is, people are kind of coming in for one hit. So these expressive beings, as you call them, and artists, which they are, they really do have to go in and morph. And I would say it's easier for them to go on a job and do their job and hit the button after everything comes together. I think where it's a little harder for artists is after it's done, where was a client happy. And used to, you would get that accolade by the client always coming back because that's what they naturally did. And now the market is just the wild, wild west. You could get, Tina Barney to shoot something and you couldn't have done that, you know, 20 years ago or 10 years ago. I think they need to express themselves. And so they are these expressive beings. I think it's an interesting for them to take their personal work that they really care about and flip it over and be the voice. Now, you got to remember, by the time these artists get the call, that's where our work came in, was to try to hook them up with the client. Now, the client had really already decided what creative direction. If you were an ad world, that. Then by the time we get the call, we work to get the call. My agency works to get the call, whatever we do, whether trade shows or traveling or one-on-one appointments or going to see people or sending your artist out or whatever it takes. newsletters, myriads of things. That's our
Yeah.
job. Then when
Yeah.
it comes in, then it's the artist's job, really. And they're
Sure.
expecting it and
Sure.
they want it or they wouldn't
I
be
get it.
here. So,
So maybe I'm
but yes, lots
imagining
of
that.
fears, lots of fears. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe so. Maybe I am not over romanticizing, but it seems like they do have their side projects where they can be uninhibited. They don't have to speak. They don't have to answer anyone. They don't have to play by
Yeah.
anyone's creative brief.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but
True.
but it seems like there's maybe a little bit less therapy that is required than maybe I was imagining. Okay.
Well, let me go back on that real quick because I'm thinking you got to remember, like most of these guys, unless it's a really new green young photographer, they are like $10 million Navy SEALs on set by this point. Do you know what I mean? They know what they're doing. They've been prepped for this. Some have been shooting for longer than others. So it's really in the pleasing of the client. They know they can go there and do their job. That's almost the easy part, but it's in the pleasing the client where the fear is. And then of course there's just fears of am I good enough? And we're living in this Instagram world where click, 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 everybody's seeing what everybody's doing. And why am I not working more? And I'm married to a photographer, and it does affect the way I work because I do feel like it's kind of lonely for these guys, back in there watching what everybody else is doing. And even within the own agency. I mean, I've told you in our coaching that sometimes the hardest move I made in the agency, which was nothing but me sitting on a bed with a baby and a Rolodex at first, but was from taking my first artist to my second artist because you want them to have this person, this me who is there kind of allaying all their fears, right? And you can only be that to somebody so much. You do
Yeah.
have to have a strong core to be able to get through almost the more that part of the business than being a good photographer.
Yeah. Right. I imagine that's a learned skill like it is for everyone. How do I deal with my insecurities? How do I deal with rejection as an artist? So what part of your work, how much do you need to support your artists, kind of giving them some of that emotional support or helping them navigate the typical fear that I imagine any artist
Yeah.
would have? Like, does the client like what I'm delivering?
Yeah, it's hard to think. It's hard for me to think like that because in some ways, like I'm almost more artist focused. We have reps here that are really client focused. So they're between the artist and the client. My job is a little bit more overarching now. The best thing I can do is try to make opportunities for these artists in whatever way that looks like. But yes, I think for I'd say the first 20 years of business, I definitely had a lot of conversations. And I would say our agents are too with artists that are feeling insecure, especially if they're young and they're just getting started. So yes, but then there's everything else. Like, I'm sitting here and coaching with you because of some old fears of mine. So yes, we're always working on ourselves and things come up as we get down the calendar. But I don't know, I'm trying to really address that about the fears of the artists. I think it's almost like because it's their jobs and their life, it's almost like it's like all of our fears. I mean, I guess a banker might feel that way. Is the market going to crash? Am I going to get fired tomorrow? It's just all of us have these, I think.
That's true. I think we all do. I have a really fun picture of you sitting with a Rolodex and a baby on your bed 30 plus years ago, starting this thing. And then when
Yeah.
you've been very successful, the company has grown. But what I know about you is I can't imagine it's the business success that has really fueled you this long. I'm curious, what's the intrinsic fulfillment you get from
Mm,
doing what you do and what your company does?
that's a good question. I would like to answer that one. I was raised in a the Episcopal church. I've always had a lot of faith in life. I've had some hard things happen, but I think you just move through them and you know they're part of the ladder of your life and your lessons. I think that I grew up in a family with amazing older sibling and younger sibling. And I think somewhere in the middle of that, I found I didn't need to weigh down my parents anymore. So I kind of found myself at a very young age needing to kind of please. And I enjoyed people and spent a lot of time with my next door neighbors. And I was social and my house was busy. And so I honestly think I took some of all that into just slowly but surely building this company. And I'm just telling you right now, right when we first started, I never really know where I'm going. I just really follow the energy. And it's the same thing that I tell all my artists all the time. Like, how things are feeling if you follow the energy. I mean, I even got to where if I'm meeting an artist and one day who's super successful and the next day I'm sitting on my couch with somebody else who's just getting started. And I started to trust the way my body was feeling when I was talking to somebody that much, let's say 10 or 15 years ago, like my knees were pointed towards them, or I put my legs up on the couch and took notes. And, I started going like, wow, okay, that's the way you decide who you want to rep, by who you connect with. I'm answering this question in a roundabout way, but I love people. And it sounds sappy to say, but I love matching people with what they really want to do in life. And I love making people happy. And I love having a close team to work with and finding their acceptance in my little idiosyncrasies and how I'm changing now. And in general, I love humans. I love matching things up. All my friends and all my people in my life. I kind of like matching, but finding solutions.
Yeah.
I'm a mother of four too. You kind of get to a place in your life where you feel like you can fix anything. If you represent a bunch of artists and you have four children, it's
Yeah.
hard to stop fixing.
Yeah. So I want to talk about something you just mentioned. You talked about you trust in energy and you trust in your intuition and you trust in your body. Now, listen, I talk with a lot of CEOs. Few of them come at me with that. There's
Yeah,
not a lot of trust. A lot of business owners are more analytic minded,
I'm not
much less,
that. Yeah.
yeah, much less spiritual. And I love that that has been at your core. I'm guessing that has evolved and grown over the years. But how did you learn to trust the way that you trust?
You just look at how life kind of happens for you. Like some of the hardest things that happened to me were things that really taught me a lot. Like if you sit in an experience and there are always going to be things that are good and bad. I literally talk to photographers and directors like this too, like when they're stuck. You go like, look, you're going to create something and then you're going to like part of it, not like part of it. Just keep moving towards the part you like, but keep testing. So test, like, don't like, move this way. Test, don't like, move this way. So you kind of turn in a circle. So in a way, that's the way it kind of felt for me. I just kept moving towards kind of positivity. I don't love a lot of negativity. I don't love a lot of confrontation. I'm having to learn the backside of that, but I can also be grateful of the things that maybe weren't ideal in my childhood. And again, I had a great childhood, mom and dad up there, but for the most part. But, let's be honest, I don't know. It's just been kind of like a orchestra of faith, really, and how I felt inside. And yes, some hard stuff happens. Good artists leave you. If you try to make a lesson out of everything that happens and it to be a learning place, then somehow you end up just trusting the energy of it. And then
Yeah.
I have like 50 examples of things that have happened that if you start kind of keeping up with all that, it kind of starts building the muscle of
Yeah.
faith,
Yeah.
really.
I think it's a superpower of yours. I really do.
Thank you.
I think it's what's led to your success. It's what that learning to trust the way that you trust, listening to your body, feeling and energy. That's something that I've been focused a lot on and have desperately needed to learn myself this past 10 years.
Really.
I'm
Yeah.
much more trusting now than I ever have been, realizing
Yeah.
that, maybe there's something beyond to this identity I create in my mind as to who I am or how things should be in the world. But man, maybe if I just trust the energy and I move to what energizes me and what doesn't
Yes.
energize me and what's
Yes.
my
I think that's
intuition telling me.
huge.
Oh my
I think
gosh.
so much we're in our heads and not in our hearts. And I
Yeah.
really think that's it. And I'm just
Yeah.
telling you, like, trust me, I can get stuck in my head, and there's things when I think about feelings, sometimes I can get stuck in my head versus feeling things. But when I'm in the zone of where I'm comfortable, I just think anybody can look at their life and kind of see the couple of places where you're comfortable. That's where life's kind of calling for you.
The tough
Yeah.
thing about that and why it's a hard thing to just like pick up a book and read about learning to trust and then like, okay, I'm just gonna start trusting. It's not it's one of those things that I think just must have to come from experience of trusting, of, saying, I don't know why I'm about to make this decision, but it feels like the right decision. I'm gonna see what happens. And I feel like once you start wading into those waters and you build
Yeah.
a relationship with trust. And that's been
Yeah.
my experience with it.
And then funny enough, if I've done some things in the past for the wrong reasons, it never ends up working out, and that kind of builds that trust too, weirdly enough. Some not great things happening builds the trust as well because you did things like if I took a photographer one time just because he made a lot of money and we needed that at the time, and there's a lot of great photographers with a lot of beautiful pictures. For some reason it never ends up working out. And I know that's might be a tricky thing to say here, but because at the end of the day, we're commercial reps. They all want to make money, and that's how we make money. But it's a different thing when you're just really into somebody and their pictures and who they are, and you want to help build that, and it's all authentic, and you all care about them and what you're building together. But if you just
Yeah.
come at it of but it's a good chance they just needed money too. So it's really just things inside of me or us. But so those
Yeah.
things help build the trust too. Like, I didn't think that was going to work, you know? So
Yeah, right. Sometimes, right. It reminds us when we make decisions counter to our intuition and we get the results like,
yeah,
yep, should have listened to
yeah,
myself. It reinforces, yeah, maybe I need to
yeah.
really stick to just trusting myself
And
and the
maybe
work.
we just create all these things. I don't know. I'm sitting here thinking as you're listening to you talk. Maybe we create these thoughts so we can end up at the place where we need to end up, where we're more comfortable. I don't know. But all of it very interesting.
Yeah. So speaking of trust, I think this is a cool segue into a lesson that you shared with me that your father taught you a long time ago. And I'm going to share what that is in a minute. But when I heard you share this with me, I don't know, couple 2, 3 months ago or something. I almost fell off my chair because the same lesson is a lesson that I hold sacred that I was taught probably 10 years ago, and it kind of changed everything for me. You told me that your father told you that life happens for you and not to you.
Mhm.
Can you share a little bit about what that means to you? Life happens for you and not to you.
Well, I mean, really, exactly what we're talking about, right? If you can walk into these situations with faith that you're going to learn something out the other end, good or bad. That's the other thing. It can be good or bad. So, that's so deep in me, I can hardly even find the words for it that maybe it's coping, maybe it's survival. I mean, listen, the hard part about being a business owner who's a little bit more, I like to call it now magical thinking versus like a real business person, like I'm half decent at math. I've worked on Wall Street for a minute. I've got all that, but it's not, who I am really. I think I'm just a energetic, like antenna sort of. So life happening for you, not to you is, I mean, I still love it so much and it does mean so much to me, but I also think that if you can live in that space, life is just a little bit gentler for you, even with
Yeah.
the hard things.
I'd love to get just for people that have never heard this idea communicated or articulated this way. I'd like to get into a little bit of what it means to me, how it's helped me, and I imagine you'll have some more thoughts around it. But most of my work and in most of my own personal developments, learning how to break out of what I would consider victim consciousness, which is the world is happening to me, where basically another way of conceptualizing that is I don't have control. The world is happening to me. I'm at the effect of the world. I can't be happy unless the world shows up the way I want the world to show up. And it's a pretty like flat way to live life. However, it's a natural way to live life. Most of us live this way. I would say the majority of the world lives this way. And there's all kinds of upside in at least beginning to open up to seeing the gifts in whatever results you're experiencing. Like, what's the less like, yeah, boy, I got a real shitty outcome in this decision I made here, but why did this show up in my life right now for me to learn exactly what I need to learn? Like, what's the gift in this? And
Right.
the more I shift out of this ho hum mentality and get into this place of curiosity to see the gifts, everything all of a sudden is for me.
Yeah.
Just a
It's so
different
funny
way to
just
live.
really trying to take in what you're saying and really trying to see what this means, life happening for you, not to you. I think I've been doing this for so long that I don't even know that I'm doing it, to tell you the truth. And so,
Congratulations.
well, thank you. Thank you. And I do think it's a little bit to what you're saying, to what I said earlier, which was it might just be a survival thing. It might have been there was some disassociation that happened a long time ago that just went like, I might not understand this right now. Let's say if I had something that, happened to me in my childhood that kind of really dampened my voice or something like that. I could be sitting around and feeling awful about that. Or I could say that being dampened at that point of life made me open up to other people and be curious about other things because I wasn't comfortable at such and such a place and therefore helped me build my business. So that's a kind of a rocky example, but it probably did start there and not even knowing until my dad kind of, I mean, he was a very up kind of guy. He used to listen to Zig Ziglar in the car, see you at the top. So,
Okay, that
um,
explains everything.
yeah, that was on a little cassette tape, right? 8 track. But, yeah, I'm just trying to think like it's just so much easier to be that way. And again, I do think there's parts of me that has to shut down from things that are hard to feel out there in the world. Like there's a lot going on right now that is like really hurting me. And I'm kind of I don't know what to do with it in some ways. And I'm sure in the process of this therapy and also this coaching with you that I'll have to figure out the output of that because I can't quite apply a lot of things I'm seeing, 5-year-old in detention, having to work that backwards. So I'm growing too. Do you know what I mean? I think like all the things in life, I remember old therapists used to tell me that life is kind of like a screen. The holes get bigger the more you kind of learn about yourself. The screen door, they get wider and then they start coming through more and you understand more. So it's almost like I feel like I've understood so much, but now I'm kind of at a reverse understanding, going back in and taking the ways that I learned to live my life to be able to function and that I'm grateful for, that didn't, life happened for me, not to me. But now I'm probably having to reverse engineer that a little bit
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. I want to talk about this reverse engineering. I want to talk about this evolution of you. And you just said, I'm still growing. Like, well, of course, we're all going to, we're all growing until well, not until we're done growing, but
Yeah,
life is all about growth. Every day is
totally,
is a new
definitely.
adventure, right? So who are you becoming in this chapter that you're in? I mean, we've learned a little bit about your past. You've built this really exciting 35 years you've been
Yeah,
doing
like
this.
30. I
Like
started 89, so 37.
30, I mean, that's wow. And so you've had, you were a mom with a baby and a Rolodex on your bed. And now
Mhm.
things are quite different now. You're a grandmother now, which is incredible.
Yes,
So
yes.
there's
Well,
still a
that's so
baby, but
funny that baby that was sitting on my bed is sitting over there with her baby, her
with their
first
baby.
baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who are you becoming with this growth? Who are you like who is the Sarah that's next?
It's funny because I feel like in some deep way, I feel like I've been on such a path, but not even really known it. Because a lot of times along the way, everything has been kind of unintentional. And again, all the things I've said, follow the energy. So started, if you think about my trajectory, it was loving people, repping artists, wanting to make people happy, right? So repping artists, having a little creative side myself, had the aptitude to like run an agency. So say, but didn't really know that. So then the next thing you get that kind of settled and then you go like, wow, if it takes 30 people between London and New York or 20 at the time, 22 at the time, say 8 years ago to land jobs, like we better start producing some of these jobs, and you're using your intuition. You're seeing the landscape change. You're seeing fees come down a little bit. All the things change. So then all of a sudden, you quietly open a production company underground for like 5 years and then above ground for below the line, above the line for the last 4 or 5 years, I would say. So now and this is all of it as I look back, all of it's been underground and working underground as the river's moving. But I can see it's just timed perfectly for this market where these artists are being called to tell stories more than ever. So remember how I told you that by the time we walk into the job, the creative has been decided? I'm starting to feel the draw with a handful of my artists who have, bigger stories to tell or are more interested in that. Some are, some aren't. That's really up to them. But the ones that are, I'm feeling this interest in coming to the market with them in a more creative way, not to get in the way of ad agencies or not to get in the way of anything, but just to have their voices heard even more. Because in this world where that seems so important, it's kind of a nice match time for them as well. So there's that side that I'm really interested in. And then this good work side, this is a giving back side that I just love. And I really I really wish that if we have the management and the production and then we come into things in a little small creative kind of studio, I hope that every job that we can do can have this beautiful good works giving back side that we just give the artists want to give, we want to give. We've been underground working on that for a while too. We've been working with a beautiful organization called Women's Earth Alliance, and we're starting to talk about doing deeper things with them. I moved away for 4 years and worked remotely, moved my kids to the green school in Bali because I realized there were things I could not teach my children about the world. Like as a mother, there are things you can really teach them. And then there's other things that you cannot about saving the world. So that has always been in me, for the past 10 or 15 years. These are the things I can't do not that I can't do anything about, but I don't know about. But if there's a way in what we've created here that we can give back in that way, that I do want to do that. So
Yeah,
that's where
right.
I'm kind of going. But again, it's all in this same flow that I'm talking to you about. It's energy. It's life happening for you, don't do you. It's making the mistakes and failing from them. It's being scared. It's being scared to be sitting right here, right now. You're gonna be too big, instead of too little. It's gonna be scared that you're gonna say something stupid. I mean, it's all I'm living, breathing organism of all that shit.
I love it. I love it so much. So, I asked you, like, who's this Sarah you're becoming? And it's funny, like, putting it, I spend so much time trying to get people out of their heads and out of these ideas as to who they are. I'm asking you, who are you becoming? It's sort of a silly question. But there is this giving element that you are seemingly more, your energy is moving there. There's this 1% for the planet. And, a lot of your organization is really more of a giving space, which is just wonderful. I'm curious. So it's always, I think, really just fun for me to like know how you got here. And I think it's inspiring for people that may be listening to this. We all have our hero's journey, some version
Mhm.
of that. We all have some obstacles to overcome, some adversity to overcome. What did you need to overcome personally? I mean,
Mm,
35 years, 37 years doing this to get
right.
from where you were and where you started to where you are now. Like, what was the hard? You've talked about this fear that's been along
Yeah.
for the ride the whole time. Like, what was the most important thing for you to have to overcome to get to this place now?
Think I kinda unconsciously knew that I was gonna get through it by small wins, and I didn't really even know it at the time, but, taking on 1 photographer, 2 photographer, having some success with them, learning the business by doing, because I think my deepest underground fear, and even when I say it out loud, it's so stupid, but I just didn't have a good education.
Ah,
And I grew up in Mississippi. I went to a brand new school in a trailer. I remember asking in the ninth grade if I could go away to boarding school. I must have known. But here's a good example of life happens for you, not to you. At the end of the day, I'm not a person that can learn by reading books or studying in class. So in some ways, I have been able to understand. I mean, and I went to college because you had to go to college. But if I would have been born now, I probably wouldn't have gone to college because I'm a learner by doer. But you kind of had to go to college then. And I got through college, but literally fine. Like, it was a library science degree, perfect for me. Lots of details, lots of things fit into little slots. And I still think I'm plagued a little bit with feeling like I'm dumb, for sure. And it's not, I mean, like, not dumb, but like, that's one reason why I think I have to go on this side of a little magical thinking, a little like, I have friends that run huge ad agencies here and I'll come and go like, I want to start doing some pitching. And they're like, oh my God, you can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know what you're doing. But I'm like, well, that's the way I built this whole business. Like there's this little thing tapping me on the side going, you got it. You can do it. You can do it. But I'm like, oh, so sometimes you don't ask too many questions. You know what I mean? You kind of got to just go forth. But I am at a place where I need expertise to come in and help me. I've never been afraid to have people come help. That's why I changed the name from Sarah Laird, which I was never expecting to build anyway, to Laird and Good Company, because I knew I wanted a bunch of people working together and I didn't want it to just be me. And I also wanted the artist to have lots of support, and that also allowed me to kind of go on and be this more creative thinker and keep thinking for the agency so I could keep the wheels turning and the milk on the table and the wheels on the bus. But again, this does plague me a little bit. But I got the small wins, the small successes. You know, I think I was able to go okay. But my word that I always use is I'm street smart, not book smart. And I come from a family kind of geniuses. Like my brother is a beyond, and my sister. There's a
yeah,
lot of
yeah, yeah.
smarts in my family, so I have to be smart, right?
Yeah, but I'm appreciating like here we are. You're a very successful, celebrated person in your community and in
Don't
business.
feel these things, but thank
Yeah,
you.
well, you can
Not that
feel
I
what you
don't
want.
take them in, but,
I know.
yeah, I don't sit around thinking like that, but thank you.
Of course, you don't sit around. That probably is
Yeah.
what's helped you be so successful is that you're not sitting around thinking about how great you are.
No.
But
Yeah.
yet you feel not enough or not smart enough or whatever
Yeah,
the
yeah,
education is.
yeah,
I just
yeah,
love it when leaders are willing to model that, like, yeah, listen, we all have that. You didn't say imposter syndrome, but like
yeah,
we all have
yeah,
this shit. And I think the more leaders
yeah.
that are willing to just say, like, yeah, that's part of the experience, I just think it's really helpful. That's a big part of why I
But
want.
I think that is why I think I've always felt so grateful that I found my path. And, so my aptitudes were such. So I was a library science major. I liked a lot of details and I liked people. So I probably wasn't the right aptitude for a librarian standing quiet in the library, but I liked a lot of details. So I added in the people mix and then added in some little OCD, ADD kind of organization stuff that We make those two titles work for us, right? I've come to realize that it's old words I'm hanging onto there. But at the same time, like I wouldn't want to be talking to you today about the business or a lot of deep kind of thought like that. I kind of live more in this spiritual energetic zone.
Yeah.
And there are times that makes me nervous. Like, if I have to go in and get some money for this other division I want to build, somebody's going to go like, well, what you got? What do you know? And I'd have to be going, well, I think a little magical thinking over here. I think we can make this work. But it's the way I've done it.
Yeah, which is amazing. Okay, so if your company just suddenly disappeared tomorrow,
I was
uh,
thinking about that the other day.
oh, you
What
were.
would I
Look at that.
do?
Well, not what you would do. I mean, I'm curious about what you would do,
No,
but
but how would
well,
I
the
would,
question that I have for you, and then I want to hear what's on your mind about
yeah,
this. But like,
yeah, yeah.
what part of Sarah would feel lost? Like, we attach ourselves, our identities that we create, silly as it may be. We attach a lot of that with our work. And
Yeah, yeah,
what
yeah,
part of you would
yeah.
feel lost if your business went away? Who would you be then?
I mean, that's an interesting thing to think because I was trying to think about the way I work and when I had to work off hours in Bali, and you kind of end up living and working all the time. That's the way my life is. I might be in the bathtub at 6 o'clock working in the morning. I might be in there at 8 o'clock at night, but I also might have had a long lunch with a friend or a business lunch but your life just kind of becomes your work, especially now, my family's working in it. My daughter runs London. I'm sure there are things that I would miss because it fills a lot of time and holes. But I also really do believe that I would probably think life is happening for you, not to you. And I know that I would go on and do something interesting. I know that I would probably go build either a division of total give back division for another company or something like that. Or I would either trust, I could, this is going to be a little bit of an aside, but when you overview an artist's life for so long, like I've had several artists that you've had for like 25 years, and there were times that like they were slow in a summer or something like that, and they'd be like, I'm slow, what am I going to do? And, we're doing everything we can do. They're doing everything they can do, but they're still slow. And then you look back 2 years later and go, man, they really needed to be home that year. Their kid was having a hard time. Like, isn't that amazing that happened? And when you've overlooked at the timeline of so many artists' lives like that, you can see that again and again. And I tell them that a lot. Like, if somebody's having a hard time, like, you'll understand this later. So I think for me, I would probably know that wherever I landed, I needed to. Maybe a kid needs me. Maybe I need to go make a movie. I've been wanting to do that for a long time.
It's such a scary thing to just sort of, for me, I'll speak from my own experience. It's a scary thing to sort of give up some sense of control or direction and just say, I surrender to the world. I'm going to have the world do with me what it wants. And it can
Right.
be a terrifying thing, but the more and more
Yeah.
I, in my own life, am willing to do that, the more liberating and energizing. And it's just the best where it's like, take
Well,
me,
you know
world.
that
What?
great line, like, "How do you make God laugh? Tell him your plans," right? I mean, we use that all the time.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
we really do. So, it's almost like you can't get too attached to a plan.
So, I mean, I've got 27 questions that I was thinking about
Yeah.
our talk
Yeah,
today.
good.
I was going to ask you these, and most of them, and I should have known better because I know you, but it's like one of my questions was, what would enough actually look like as it pertains to your business? And I
And
kind
then,
of want
like,
to,
really what it would look like?
yeah, like
Like, what do I
maybe the
really wanna do? Where am I going? What do I want? Like, if I could go.
well, sure, I would love that, but it's kind of like it seems like there isn't a finish line that you have necessarily established. It's like I'm just going to go
Yeah.
where the world wants me to go,
Yeah,
which
yeah, that is it. That's true, and I'm sure that probably makes people nervous, but I think I've gotten used to me operating that way. I mean, it also, don't think in the middle of the night sometime I'm not in the fetal position going, "Ah, what am I doing?" You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
but for the most part, if I can just, if I mean, as I'm getting older, I definitely have to stay more well rested and, a little bit
Sure,
more
sure.
energetic and things like that. And,
Yeah.
having to work on those things a little bit more. But yeah, no, I mean, I never even had a plan for this. That's why, like, when we started this, I never, and even when I sit with artists now, these kids, they think so much further ahead than we ever used to. Like, I would never have thought to plan ahead, but it can run into, like our work together. You're asking me to lock down a lot more things than I've ever locked down. You have to remember, I've been in the zone of wanting to keep people happy, wanting to work hand in hand with a group of people that are making other people happy. And not just like, I want to make people happy. I mean, life is short, right? Like we need to be having fun, just like we walked in this conversation saying, let's have some fun. And again, I'm not saying every one of my days is fun. Shit happens. Life happens and stuff. But I think that there hasn't ever been a real big plan. There's not an end plan. I feel things brewing inside of me, and that's when things start happening. Like I felt the production company coming, but it's like zeitgeisty, right? It's like you're feeling the energy of the world and what it's calling for. And I'm always on time with zeitgeist, or sometimes just a little bit behind, and that's okay. I've kind of gotten used to that. What would be enough? What would be enough? I mean, enough is always these artists having opportunities that they won't. Because I feel like I'm living my opportunity. I'm feeling like I'm living so perfectly where I want to be. Besides the fact I can't control the business. And, these artists aren't as happy as, they would probably like to be. They're probably not working as much as they want to. And living with that is hard too when you're a person that's a pleaser. But I think I also had to learn maybe 10 or 15 years ago when I joked a few minutes ago and said, okay, I finally realized I'm kind of good at my job 10 or 15 years ago. I had to come out of that world of constantly pleasing, which helped me build my business, remember? And then now I had to kind of share responsibility for them. If it wasn't working out for an artist, it wasn't always my fault. I couldn't live in that with this many artists. I could always be confident that I cared, that my heart was there and I wanted the best for them, but I can only attach my cart to their horse, to what they
Yeah.
give me.
Yeah.
Right.
We each need to take responsibility for
Yeah, and
our
I had to
lives. And
learn that. Yeah, I had to really learn that. But, I don't know, I definitely feel it's definitely moving into some kind of good worksy movie making, giving back, creating content. And, in some ways I can look. And I'm so happy at the last couple of climate festivals I've been to. I went to the one in London this year and the one in New York. Just so much beautiful work happening there, where our
yeah,
ad world is a little bit harder and tougher to get in. It is the beautiful, sweetest world over there. People kind of bond for long times. We had a party here for 1% for the Planet, and two clients that talked together who'd been working together for 10 or 15 years. And it was a commercial client that built a regenerative farm in Italy and it was like, that's kind of where I want to go.
yeah, right. It's like, here is the energy speaking its truth right now, is what I just experienced. Like, I
Mm,
could feel like this is you, like
yeah.
lots of energy, like climate,
Yes.
1% for, like, so
Yes.
I just can't wait to see what more comes through
Yeah.
that energy and through you. That's going to be really
Yeah.
fun
Well,
to
I'll
get
have to
a
make sure
witness.
not think too much about it so it'll happen, right?
Yeah, who needs to think about it? Just do it. Seems to have worked for you thus far.
We'll see. We'll see.
Okay, so Sarah, I've got a couple questions I ask
Yeah.
everyone that's on the show. Ideally, these questions are to be inspiring, and you've walked the walk that a lot of others have yet to walk. So, if you could whisper one truth into every leader's ear, what would it be?
Into every leader's ear.
Yeah, every leader that has not walked your path yet, and you've got one truth you think it's important for leaders to know, what would that be?
Follow the energy. I would say follow
Yeah,
the energy.
well, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I
that's
say it
sort
to
of
the
your
artists all the time.
it's your brand and it has served you and
Yeah.
I love it. So,
Yeah.
okay. Well, so then the next question is, what truth helps the giant in you rise up when fear drags you down?
To trust and that I'll come out the other end okay, and that life is really taking care of me and it's happening for me, not to me.
There it is. It all
Yeah.
comes back to that. It's kind of nice to have that one thing that's like, yeah, this is the motto. This is my way of being in the world. And it seems to,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I find so much comfort in that. I love that we share that.
I think it probably is easier when you get older and you have experience, you know
I
what
think
I
so too.
mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is not your first rodeo. Trust is easier when you have more experience under your belt, for sure.
True. Good and bad, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're about ready to sign off here,
Oh,
but
we are? That was fast. You were
I
right.
told you, I'm like, this is just gonna be a quick chat. So
That was great.
anything else that you want to share or anything you want to pitch about the business, the company, anything?
Really no. Really no. I'm just like, I'm really trusting where I am right now. I'm loving this work I'm doing with you off the back end of, this my own therapy, which I hadn't been in like 15 years. I know there's going to something that's coming in there that's, gonna be good for me, even though maybe crossing over some hard bridges here and there. But, no, I'm excited to be along on the ride.
Yeah. And so, Sarah, if people want to learn more about you or the company,
Yeah.
or some of the really cool things you're doing with 1% for the planet, some of those other things, how do they find you?
Yeah. Just the website, lairdandgoodcompany.com. Yeah, and there should be, a bunch of little buttons up there to poke around on, but everything's there, and the good works is there, our little sustainability deck and everything else, and we'll be yeah, watch that space for sure.
Well, I'm so glad we did this.
Me too, thank you.
I'm so glad you outed yourself and shared your reluctance. And then you said, yeah, there's some fear here and I want to do this.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
was just such a lovely hour to spend with you. I just really appreciate your candor and your openness and all the lessons that you've learned and sharing that with me and whoever's listening to
Thank you.
this. I just really appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Well, thank you too. I would not be here if I hadn't have done such good work with you and I didn't trust you so much. So thank you for making the opportunity for it to happen. It's been something I have thought about doing but haven't really wanted to do. But I think it's good practice for me to open my mouth and thank you for letting me riff and lose control and everything else.
My pleasure. Everyone, thank you for listening. If you're still listening to this, well, you're probably getting a lot of value. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. So thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Please follow the show and join me, Clay Stelzer, each week as we stop pretending. We name our fears and remember what it takes to stand tall as the giants we already are. When leaders get real, they make it safe for others to do the same, which is why I love having folks like Sarah on to model this behavior, to out herself, to show her what it's really like being her. Anyway, please subscribe or follow wherever you listen to podcasts, share with other leaders, leave a review if you're inclined, and help more people feel what's possible when fear doesn't run the show. Thanks so much, everybody.